What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics Show, live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. Guys, if you are new to the channel, first and foremost, make sure to check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're over on the Twitter page, make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout any of our shows here at DSM, if you want to catch any of the DSM pre-game lives, make sure to check out that YouTube link specifically. It is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up on the screen here, like so. With your host, I am one half of them, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. You can find him on Twitter as well at Scotty Drown. Doc Rivers dismissed from his coaching duties for the Philadelphia 76ers after just 3 seasons of second round exits. We're going to talk about the firing for Doc Rivers. Was it deserved? Was it a long time coming? Our initial reactions from all of that. There's 5 coaching candidates, really 6 or 7 coaching candidates that were put out there. 2 of them we can kind of brush to the side, but we're going to talk about all the candidates, pros, cons, see who we like, and see who we dislike, and see who you guys like. So drop your comments on what you thought of the Doc firing and who you would like most to see replace him and lead the 76ers. And then we'll just continue to let out some more frustration from the ending of this season before we can finally get on. Two quick announcements. We're going to start today's show by selecting the winner of our jersey giveaway. Yes, I know some of you might not even care to wear a Sixers jersey for the next 2 months or so. But hey, we all know by the time that next season rolls around, all you sickos and us included will be rocking the jerseys again. So we're going to start off with that. And then B, starting Friday. That's where I was going, Scotty. Starting Friday, me and Scotty, one wish per episode. We're going to be starting our Sixers off-season wish list. So starting this Friday, following next Friday, we are going to give one thing leading up to free agency on June 30th that we want the Sixers to do collectively as a show to improve this team more towards that championship goal. But my man, let's start right here with the picker wheel. Let's see how this thing goes. All right. So good luck to everybody out there. And thank you to everybody that subscribed and tuned into the pregame shows throughout this second round series, even though it wasn't the outcome that we wanted.
That's what it's all about.
Who do we got? D-Rab.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. D-Rab. Let's go.
Congrats to D-Rab. Scotty, you know D-Rab, so let him know we will get him his jersey as soon as possible. Thankfully, there is it's not like we have an Eastern Conference Finals to hurry up and get him that jersey for.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Congrats to D-Rab. Chili, Brett, Miss Scotty, do not worry. We will be running more giveaways
Eagles
throughout the summer. Eagles. Hopefully, the Phillies can start to find some consistency within their play. They win a series, they lose 3 in a row. We have no idea what to expect from this team, but hopefully we start to get some consistency and we can raffle off some Phillies gear. And yeah, I mean, rocking a Sixers uni in Florida is all good. I don't think Brett, are we not? I don't know if Brett's an Eagles fan. We got some digging to do with our fans, Scotty. With
Phillies fan at least, Brett. I mean, are we 4 for 4 or what? Are you just?
We got to win the jersey. What we got to start doing. I think we got to start vetting our viewers.
Where are you from?
Yeah,
we got to build the personal connection from now, so we don't lose Brett, man. No, it's all good, Brett.
Yes,
Chile. We'll get you guys some good stuff in the future. Of course, we'll have our own merch, and we'll also have more jersy raffles as well. Man.
Oh, we do have our own merch, like the one you're seeing. I mean, again, I don't know if you want this moment. Probably a bad promo right there.
Man.
Anywho, Scotty, we spoke about it a little bit last night. Brett, 4 for 4. Oh, there you go. Yeah, the Flyers. Don't worry about them right now. We'll talk about them at a later time.
Right.
But anyway, we talked about it last night on Scotty Talks NBA, which was a good time to break that down. And by the way, congratulations on the Lakers on the Nuggets pick so far. You're up 1-0.
Hey, I will say the Lakers did some good work towards game
Towards
2.
the end, yeah.
They came back, they made it a game. So, and I think AD ended up with like 40 and
40,
10.
yeah.
So they're going to go at it all series. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting series. The Nuggets, man, they run like a well-oiled machine. I'm completely jealous. I'm completely jealous at the pieces Jokic has around him and the way that team operates. But maybe with this coaching discussion, we can talk about ways to get there and
improve that offense.
Exactly.
Exactly. But yeah, as Scotty said on that show, what can go wrong will go wrong right now for Sixers fans, and it's just going to be that Joel and the Joker talk. But God,
what you said to me in the show yesterday on Scotty Talks NBA about Embiid and basically the ending point of the season, the 15 points in a closeout game in a game 7 against the Boston Celtics. Like, there's no coming back from that anyways, but then Jokic is going to just put
What's the problem? It's the two sides meeting in the same season, right? It would be the ultimate, discussion stopper, the ultimate argument ender if Joel gets bounced in the fashion that he did, and in the same year, Jokic either wins the finals with probably a finals MVP or even just makes the finals. Like if he beats LeBron, the Lakers, and in somewhat convincing fashion, they're up 1-0 on this young series already. It's like, man, that argument has to come to a halt until Joel Embiid can prove otherwise in the postseason, right? So
yeah.
We'll talk all about that more towards the end of the show because, like I said, we got some more frustration to let out with Joel Embiid, with James Harden, and the rest of the crew. But let's start with the big news that, of course, broke about 25 minutes after we were done live here on the Phaithful Fanatic Show yesterday morning. Doc Rivers, they like to use the term dismissed, but more realistically, Doc Rivers fired, canned, see ya. Doc Rivers out of here after 3 seasons of the 76ers head coach. Scotty, I know we discussed it a little bit yesterday, but let's get more in depth here. What are your initial reactions? What are your initial thoughts on the Doc dismissal?
Initial thoughts were I was in between whether Doc deserved to be fired this season, right? And I think that's the confusing part for me. As somebody who I consider myself as a somewhat rational Sixers fan, and I feel that we were pretty fair with Doc this year as far as giving him credit when it was due, taking credit away when it was not. Overall, he had a pretty good season, probably his best since he's been in Philadelphia. I know he got the 1 seed in his first year, but still, you look at the way everything played out, I think this one went a little bit better at least. But you just can't ignore some of the things that did stay consistent as far as his wrongdoings. The lack of usage during the regular season to try different lineups and try different matches and pairs within those rotations. Just the stubbornness, I think, around Doc Rivers and everything that he does. Then you have the James Harden riffle that comes out after the season. Of course, that fueled it a little bit more, I'm sure. And to your point yesterday, we discussed this for a long time after we got off Scotty Talks NBA. And
yeah, man.
I thought you had a great point when you were talking to me yesterday as well. Is like, is James Harden, while it seems annoying that James Harden's reacting like that and these reports come out about his discretion with Doc and his relationship with Doc and how it's not great when it comes to on the court. It makes sense when you think about how the offense looked and how it was so stagnant at times and how it was just James Harden pound the rock, Joel screen, and then go to the other side, pound the rock, Joel screen. It's very basic, and I think I'm ready for a fresh new start. Like, while I don't wish any ill will to Doc Rivers, I don't look at it as this terrible era of Sixers basketball caused by Doc Rivers.
Right.
Culture that has been in the Sixers even before Doc got here, and we're trying to change it again now. We're hoping that bringing in a new coach will change the culture even more. But I don't know. I don't like that people are saying it's a scapegoat type of thing. I don't think it's that.
I think that's so far
retroactive firing. That's what this was.
I can't believe that within a firing that was so predictable and foreseen, like You knew this was coming following another second
Yeah.
round loss. I never thought that this so predictable firing would have so much to unpack within it, right?
Yeah.
The bottom line is that Doc Rivers was brought here for championship pedigree. Doc Rivers was brought here to
Yeah.
get the 76ers at least over that hump of the second round. And he hit the same roadblock that Brett Brown hit in his 3 playoff runs as well with Joel Embiid, and that was second round exits. Now, granted, we reached 2 Game 7s under Doc Rivers in 3 seasons, but we were unable to come away with a singular win. You mentioned, should Doc have been fired for this season? No. For the season, no, because this series was not his fault. You know, he definitely deserves criticism and blame throughout the year. But for the season being the reason, absolutely not. But you just knew it was coming in terms of this was basically the line in the sand. This third year was, Doc, if you get us past the second round, you probably are safe.
Yeah.
If you hit the same roadblock, you are not. And that's kind of what we saw coming. I will say that let's start with James Harden, right? Because that's what you mentioned first, and that's the first player related to Doc. And whether it's right or wrong, and I think it definitely does have it brings up some character questions within James Harden, whether he allowed that, wrinkled relationship with his head coach to affect his play on the floor. And we listened to Ramona Shelburne's conversation with Anthony Gargano yesterday, and how he felt underused and underappreciated in the offense. And, there's a lot to go through there, because whether you're underused, that still doesn't excuse, 2 for 14 shooting nights in a game, a game 2 and, whatever else. But I think that both could have handled their relationship and the situation better. Obviously, you heard the reports of Doc, kind of calling him out in public in front of the team about his habits and his part and going out on the road and everything like that. And James not responding well to it. So there's a lot going on there. I'll say this. Do I love the idea of James Harden having his hand in the pot about the future of this team and coaching hires and firing? Should James Harden be the reason that the Sixers fired Doc Rivers? Absolutely not. However, I have so much more intrigue in James Harden and Joel Embiid with a new voice and new head coach than I do with Doc Rivers and a new point guard.
Yeah.
That's where I'll kind of leave that conversation. I had no interest in, outside of like Damian Lillard, right? I have no interest in James Harden walking and the Sixers running this back with Doc Rivers, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid as the 3.
Yeah.
I have more intrigue in Joel Embiid, James Harden returning, and a new head coach that can maybe at age 34, 35 fix this clusterfuck of an offense.
I do think the only thing that I would say, and I'm not disagreeing with anything you say, I want to start by saying that the only thing that I would say that would go in Doc's favor towards staying is exactly what Brett set up here. A team that stayed unchanged for many years, doing well. I'm shocked. He's talking about the Denver Nuggets, a team that's had their head coach, they've had their system, they've had the main players that are in the rotation there for a long time now. And that's the other side of it, right? Is like the longevity, the chemistry that you build over multiple seasons playing together under the same head coach with the same scheme. And how that affects you once you get to those late round games in the postseason. They ultimately talked about it, with Boston, maybe not the same head coach, but the same group that's played together for a while now. But to that point, it's just there's not enough positives coming from Doc Rivers to outweigh the fact of that, right? Continue our longevity within the coaching scheme and keeping this team together and building chemistry. The positives just don't outweigh the negatives. The negatives outweigh the positives by far. And it was time, man. I think just thinking about it, Doc Rivers' message to the fans, it was lovely. I thought it brought emotions out of me for sure. And it's one of those things where, wow, Doc, he did a lot of things on the court that pissed me off. Even some of his post-game conference
and in interviews,
some of those piss me off, but like he is just still a respectable dude. At the same time, he's tough. He is tough. Like he said, he's tough, and I think he answered the questions in a very real manner. He defended himself a lot and Some would call that a lack of accountability, but I think it's tough to kind of backfire at the fans
Push back, yeah.
in the media like that and stick up for your team a lot of the time. And a lot of the time that's what they need. But it was time. It was time for him to go. And to the Harden point, I'm with you. It's like we're in a very tough situation where I think Sixers fans, like there's Sixers fans out there that are being very overreactionary right now and irrational, saying, screw it, Harden can walk, we'll rebuild. It's like, man, no, like let's
rebuild.
That's not going to be fun. Like at the end of the day, you have Embiid. He won MVP this year.
Yeah,
you cannot trade a guy like that, right? Then you have Harden, who is a Hall of Fame player. He is a guy that led the league in assists this year, right? Like he did do his thing this season. It obviously just doesn't need to come down to him scoring at the end of the season. I think that's where we're at with Harden. It's not that he doesn't need to be on this team, right? And maybe a new offense does bring out the best in them. If you go into a rebuild, man, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like you're talking, people talking about draft compensation for Joel Embiid, and it's like, dude, come on. Drafts are not guarantees. Like draft picks are not guarantees of talent at all. And we should know that firsthand, that it does not work every time. Not everything can be like the Oklahoma City Thunder and what they're doing right now, or the San Antonio Spurs getting Victor Wembanyama. Like, it doesn't work like that. So we need to chill the hell out and take the opportunities that we have going forward with the core that we have, man. Like, it's a bit ridiculous. Like, do you want to watch process era Sixers for real for the next 5 to 10 years? Like, no. We get a new coach in here. We start to build that hope, that optimism again, and we go at it again next season. Like, let's not be ridiculous, man. Like, a rebuild, we really want to go through a rebuild after going to the playoffs, getting our hopes up every year. I get it's a huge letdown every single season when you're out in the second round. I get it. But at least you're in the conversation. You're in the talks. Like, you have a star in the NBA. It's something to watch. Like, at the end of the day, that's all I can ask for the most part. I want championships, of course. But I do not want process era Sixers type shit back here, man. Like, I do not.
That's not fun for anybody. Like, anybody that looks back upon the process days and remembers them as fun didn't pay attention or wasn't actually watching. They just remember the outcome, and they like the term, right? They like the process of it, of the process. They don't like the actual viewership of it. I know we're talking Doc Rivers and coaching replacement, so I want to get us back on track in a second.
Yeah,
but I need to say something.
Took us off.
I need to say something. Okay, it's not only that would a rebuild not be fun. Let's calm the F down. So 2 things. 6 days ago, they were the odds-on favorite to win the NBA Finals. So let's stop yes, it is painful. It's depressing. There's not a more disappointed fan than myself. But let's stop acting like they're just completely out of the conversation moving forward because they collapsed again. Secondly, and that's as a team. Secondly, there is not a fan out there that is more disappointed and more upset and angry with Joel Embiid's Game 7 performance. Hell, I criticized his Game 6 performance when not many others did. Let's stop acting like our window for a championship no longer exists with Joel Embiid. Do we have question marks about, can he be a killer? Is he that guy? Can you win a championship with your best player, with your focal point being a center? Those question marks are still valid. They're still out there. The jury is still out. But let's stop acting like the dude didn't just win the goddamn MVP. Like,
trade him when he wins MVP.
Like, he wasn't the runner-up the 2 previous years. Like, he's still not a top 5 player in the goddamn league. There's no one more upset with the lack of emotion and passion he played with on Sunday afternoon. There's no one more upset with his 5 for 18, 4 turnovers, 15-point performance than me. But stop with this. We're not, like, the championship window is just closed. It's gone. It's shut. It's over. That is so overreactionary. That is such a basic fan idea and thought process.
It's Twitter discourse. That's what it is. It's like, it's stupid. It's not realistic. It's part of like this new era, this reactionary era where it's like just overreact and blow everything up. And it's like we think the grass is going to be greener when we trade Joel Embiid for 3 first-round picks. Like, the grass is not greener. Like, it's not going to be a very fun time. The Sixers will fall off the face of the earth.
Here's why. You're allowed, your excitement goes up and down from game to game. Your criticism goes up and down from game to game. That's how we react and analyze game to game. I understand that. But we can't go 6 days ago praising and freaking out about how this team's going to do something special and it's Joel Embiid this and James Harden this and blah, blah, blah. They lose 2 games. Yes, in horrible fashion. It hurts like hell still. But they lose 2 games to now the odds-on favorites to win the finals. Not excusing it, but that's the reality of the situation. And now we're just out of the conversation moving forward. We need to rebuild. We need to trade this and release that and fire this. The Sixers have plenty of work to do this offseason. Do I even want James Harden back? My mind's not made up. I just don't know what the alternative is. That's why I'm leaning towards bringing him back. And maybe with a new coach, it helps. No offense, Brett. I'm out on this one. Out on this one. But all right.
It would be better than Harden walking. Like, this is not worst case scenario. But
I agree.
I would still take Harden over that.
I still don't want Chris Paul. But
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Let's reel this back into the coaching conversation, okay? Yeah, and we're gonna get into this as the offseason continues. No more old players.
I'm with you, Chile. That is like my motto this offseason. No more old players. We don't need to bring any more in. We can keep PJ, we can keep Harden. We do not need to bring any more 30-plus players to this team. We need athleticism, length, and youth. And we need potential. Like, I know we're a championship contending team, but as we can see around the rest of these teams, there are guys that are given chances in their rotation. They prove themselves, and it makes a difference in a season for you. And that's what we need. We do need to bring back a guy like Jalen McDaniels, I think. Like, that's just a perfect example of a guy 25 years old. Austin Reeves, right. Look at the development of this guy. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, Dame, at the end of the day, I'm with you, Chile. There's not many other stars out there that are going to be obtainable and ready to compete at a level where they can help him get to the next step in the
However, now with that 3rd overall pick, it makes
it rough. But it does take them out of Scoot Henderson and Victor Wembanyama. Yep. So 2 best players in the draft consensus-wise. So maybe it still doesn't make as much a difference, but I wouldn't get my hopes up, I guess.
Yeah, no, me neither. Me neither.
We've already been here.
Yeah. And I have faith in Daryl Morey still, but he is no Howie Roseman, so we'll see. But anyway,
he's really only brought in guys with connections from the past, if we're being honest so far. So
before getting into Brett's next comment, let's wrap up the Doc Rivers conversation, okay? So final thoughts on his firing. We agree that Doc should not have been fired because of this season, because of this series, but overall it was 100% time because of his tenure, because of the other 2nd round exits, and you add on this one because of, while yes, it wasn't his fault, it was another collapse under his watch. And just for the bottom line, that the Sixers need something new. They need a new voice. They need a new, and Brett and Chili brought up the offensive numbers and the cutting percentages, and to see how stale and boring that is, man, just to see fresh, different basketball. I know the grass isn't always greener, but in this situation, I feel like it has to get a little bit greener.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And I think when you're Daryl Morey and you sit down and you look at this team and you look at the head coach and you think about how you want this team to be constructed, how you want it to function, like Brett said earlier, first of all, Doc Rivers was not hired by Daryl Morey, so strong chance that they don't agree on basketball schemes and how they want the team to look. So you look at that first. That's one strike, right? Then the next strike is that they haven't gotten past the second round, even with Doc's experience and championship pedigree. And then you take a look at the playoff struggles and the Game 7 struggles and the second round struggles and the underachievements. 6-9 record in Game 7s, most Game 7 losses of any head coach of all time. Never won a Game 7 on the road. Lost the last 5 Game 7s by an average north of 12 points each. So as a team that is trying to get out of the second round and probably going to have to do it in close fashion in a Game 6 or Game 7 type of situation, this is probably not the guy you want leading Harden and Embiid into that battle. Let's just be honest. Like,
just a funny thought that popped in my head when you mentioned those Game 7 margins. It's like, this is a joke, so I'm not actually taking any blame away from Joel and James and putting it on the Doc, but it does make you think, like, well, if all those teams got blown out, it's
like Kawhi and PG,
like
and
why
did
did they all get blown out in a Game 7? So
it's weird. Man. It's weird, man.
It was definitely time for Doc to move on. I loved each point that you made. That's basically the only way I can say it. It was time for a change here. Time for a new voice. And just when you hear former players talk, and I think it wasn't Ben Wallace. I think it was Rasheed Wallace. It might have been Ben Wallace. I forget. On the one podcast, basically coming out and saying that, you know, the Sixers need someone that the players respect. And he's been in a Doc huddle before, and some guys just don't respect him. That's a problem, man. That again, you feel bad for Doc, I guess, but it's like, what are you doing wrong, personally and in your job for grown men not to respect you when you're a basketball lifer with a ring?
Right. My guess is that he's just completely out of touch and probably just old school, and it's just not applying to the new era. That would be my guess ultimately. But I don't know. What did you I know we kind of got off base there, but you were bringing up like the Harden situation and everything that transpired there after the season. All these reports coming out about James Harden and the relationship with Doc and the free-flowing offense, being underappreciated within the offense. You mentioned the calling out and in front of the team about going on these long weekend trips, which we had to talk about that. And I told you, I don't know, like there's part of me that's like, man, you're sitting there in front of Paul Reed and Jaden Springer and these young guys, even Tyrese Maxey, right? And James Harden's about to leave the game after the game and go on a flight to Vegas, and then he'll be back for practice on Monday. Like, you know what I mean? Like those type of situations, I do get from a coaching perspective how it's like, how do you think the young guys take this, James? And I get it, but at the same time, they're grown men, and James Harden is a grown man that can do what he wants, and he doesn't have to be disrespected as long as he's showing up to practice and showing up to team meetings and doing the film sessions and going to the games and showing up to the games. Like, I don't think we have a right as Doc Rivers in this new era, this new age. It's a players' league. I don't think we have the right to say and do that type of stuff.
So
although I do think it's childish of James to call that out if he actually did do that.
I would say this: going out and partying and going to strip clubs and you know, clubs in general, it's not a personality trait. Right. Like I need people and grown men specifically it's not a personality trait, and it almost feels like it's a personality trait for James Harden.
Yeah,
and it's a part of his, like, you know, like weekly lifestyle, and it's like I think that's something he needs to, you know, whatever. That's a different conversation.
Grow out.
I don't care if he goes out, and it's funny, like when he did go to Vegas and then comes out and, you know, drops 45 and it's like, send him to Vegas. Like, I don't care that he goes out. I will say this, to your point, if you are going to live that life, if you are going to be out on the West Coast and stay out for 2 days and then come back and meet the team back for practice, you are required to do your job.
Yeah.
And doing your job does not only mean showing up to practice and showing up
Fair.
to film session and showing up to warm-ups. No. Doing your job means being 22-8 James Harden, the same you are when you don't go out. So if you are these young guys, if you're anybody, if you're Doc, and I'm going to get into Embiid in a second with this conversation, if you're any of these guys and James was just out on the West Coast for 2 extra days partying and doing whatever, and he comes back and has a 7 turnover, 3 for 15 night, I would imagine that causes some rift between the locker room.
Yeah.
Whether you're his boy or not. Like, I don't like coincidences, Scotty. And that's not a coincidence. If you come back from one of those trips. And listen, we would have to dive in and know where James Harden was before these bad games. And even if any of that's true or relevant, I'm not accusing him of that. I'm just saying, for the argument's sake, if that were to happen, that's where I could see Doc Rivers being in the right and saying, yo, dude, what are you doing? Now, I will also say, it doesn't have seemed to be a problem between him and the big fella. They actually seem to really like and care for each other. You saw the MVP celebration, the watch, him jumping on his back, and they seem to like each other. James taking a back seat to help him achieve the MVP. All great. But we know what Joel Embiid's lifestyle is like. Family. Never has gone out. My dude used to drink Shirley Temples. Like, doesn't live that kind of life. Now, if you're him, there are people that don't, I like to go out. There are people that don't understand that mindset, that don't understand the need and want and desire to go out and drink and have fun and go to clubs and the women and all this stuff, right? So if you're Joel, who doesn't understand that desire, and then your running mate has that desire and then shows up lazy or has a bad night at the office next to you in a loss, again, would probably cause some rift. Not accusing that of happening, but if that's what some of the conversations were about, then James Harden definitely shares his fair share of blame in this scenario.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all.
I agree with this, Brett. It's not detrimental at all. You could do what you want, but you better show up to work. MJ showed up to work. He could drink on the plane and smoke and gamble and drink beers on the golf course before a playoff game, but he showed up to work. If you go out and party and then shoot 3 for 12 in a loss, I'm going to have a discussion about what you did a night before.
Yeah, no doubt. And like you said, it's no way we can prove that happened, but nonetheless, in that scenario, you can't blame Doc for that. I guess just, there's other ways to go about it, but that we don't know the full story behind that as far as how Doc may have approached it the first time versus the second time versus down the line, and how long has it been going on? Was he doing this while he was injured last season as well, or was he rehabbing and taking a month or so off from going to the clubs and private jets and stuff? But it is interesting nonetheless that came out after the season. Right after the season. There was no wait time for these reports to start flowing out. And Ramona Shelburne is a pretty reliable source, I would say, especially when it comes to
Although, did you see James Harden's Instagram story?
I did. That's why I was bringing it up. Yes.
Experts don't really be experts.
But I do wonder what he's talking about. Is it about Ramona Shelburne? Is it about Sixers fans that are calling him out and saying that he choked in the playoffs? Is it, Doc Rivers? Is that who he's talking about? Maybe Doc Rivers trying to overwhelm him and the way they run the offense.
I mean, I will say, if it's anything about the reports, from a Ramona Shelburne or anybody else, stirring up the pot between him and his former head coach now, I can't really see why he would take the Instagram to his Instagram story, because he was asked point blank, camera in his face, mic in his face, what's your relationship like with Doc? And he said, it's okay.
Yeah.
So you yourself just started the conversation of what's really going on between player and head coach.
And Doc Rivers, that maybe doesn't come from Harden's camp. That might come from Doc Rivers' camp. And Ramona Shelburne has very close relationship with Doc from LA time. So, as far as like where the report came, maybe it didn't come from Harden's side. Maybe that one came from Doc's side after he's let go, and got to give some insight as to why he really is let go from this team. Yeah, just from that time in LA with the Clippers, I think they would have a good relationship. But it's interesting, though. I know you hinted at it earlier. Then it comes out that Joel Embiid is pretty upset that Doc Rivers was let go. So that's complete opposite of James Harden and the reaction.
Two things here, right? Mr. Joel, I know I just defended you a few minutes back in the show, and I'm glad I did. However, if you didn't want your head coach fired, you probably should have shown up in Game 7.
Yeah,
that's just an idea. But that's neither here nor there. I don't necessarily even believe that, because I'm pretty sure.
This is interesting, actually.
That's what because he's very close with Ramona, which that's what I was about to say. I feel like that report would have came from someone in that camp, not Stephen A. Smith. And I know Stephen A. Smith is plugged in, which I didn't even see Stephen A. Smith said it. A guy from WIP, I think like he was ESPN, tweeted it that Stephen A. said it. And my thing is, Stephen A. is plugged in, and I know into the basketball community and into the NBA. I get it. I'll wait to hear it from someone that's more plugged into Joel Embiid's camp. Okay.
Yeah, I agree there. Stephen A. He does like his own podcast after hours.
Yeah, the No Mercy pod. Rip Ben Simmons on it.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because, like you said, if you're Joel Embiid, just show up to Game 7 and Doc Rivers.
That's pretty simple, right? If you don't want not to mention, like, Joel's not deaf. He's not like, he knows the surrounding conversations that have been going on about his head coach and his tenure here in Philadelphia. So
one of those
don't act like naive to like, oh, we lost again. I sucked. Oh, you're firing coach? Why? You knew that.
Things though, Dylan, where in the world you have people that you're close with and people that you share information with, and you're comfortable doing that, and it creates sides. And what I would hope that is not going on is that there is a side of Morey and Harden being built, and then there's a side of Embiid outside of that group.
I thought about that.
I'm hoping that that's
I will say, if that is the route, which I don't believe it is, if that is the route, though, that Daryl Morey is taking to build towards a championship, which is the James Harden route at this point of his career, Daryl Morey has already begun to tear down the 76ers organization from within. I don't believe that to be true, and I do believe that James is Joel's best teammate since Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Not that they go out and hang out together, but like, I mean, they did actually go out together last summer when, I think it was Michael Rubin's party, but they were all out, and there's pictures of them, dancing and having a good time. And I think Joel was that James? Oh, was that James' birthday party when he threw the cake off the boat or whatever?
I don't know if he was there. I don't know. I don't remember. It was James' birthday party when he threw the cake off the boat, for sure.
Yeah. If someone like this, if someone plugged into the Sixers or Joel Embiid's camp more specifically reports it, then it'll have some ground. And listen, we also don't want that happening, because even though we're all pissed off at him, we really don't want Joel Embiid unhappy here in Philadelphia. Yeah. Like that was my point about the overreaction fan. Let's move on in a second to the coaching candidates and potential hires here for the Sixers. But that was my point about, like, yes, I'm hurt and I'm disappointed and I'm angry, and we definitely can have conversation. I tweeted out while he was choking in Game 7. It's time to have a conversation about what Joel Embiid is right now and can be, and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not saying the jury's out. I'm not saying I've decided Joel Embiid cannot lead this team to a championship. So we can't go from rah-rah, he scores 33, Maxey scores 30, this team's going to win the finals 6 days ago, and then they choke, and it's this team sucks, blow it up, trade him, he's a loser. We can't do that. If they would have gotten their lunch money taken from Boston and beaten 5, I would have said, wow, there's some real deep problems for this team that they can't even compete with Boston. It doesn't make me feel better that they choked, but
I think people need to realize that these guys are humans at the end of the day. And I know this is like such a basic conversation that we have from
Yeah,
time to time, but like these players are humans, and Joel Embiid indeed can grow and get more mature mentally. He can get better as a basketball player just from situational basketball. Maybe he doesn't play at that MVP level going forward, averaging 30 plus points, but he can get better in situations. And that's what I was trying to say on Twitter after this Doc thing was announced. He sends out his message to the community, and it's like I want to feel empathetic for Doc because two things can be true. Doc, it was time for him to be let go, but at the same time, he's not going to get let go if his two stars don't choke on the biggest stage in Game 7 against the Boston Celtics in the second round. If they win that Game 6 at home like they should have and close that game out, Doc is still here. And even no matter what happened in the Eastern Conference Finals, he would still be here.
unless they got beaten like
two
5.
Things can be true. I think that's what the problem is with like not just the Sixers fan base, but the entire like world and sports community. It's like it's not all black and white. Two things can be true. Players can improve. They can choke once and then not choke the next time. Like things can change. I get it's a little grim right now. But that's why you bring in the new coach to give you a fresh outlook, a fresh new start. And
my whole point is, man, we can't go from, the city celebrating this man a week ago and it's MVP'd and it's that's everybody's favorite player to he's a loser and the city's burning down and want him out like that. We can definitely continue our Joel Embiid conversations throughout the summer.
Yeah.
Let's stop.
If you get to the postseason and you have those doubts and you say you don't trust Embiid, that's fair. But like saying like, get this guy out of here. Let's rebuild. Let's give ourselves
dude, I'm being honest. As of today, right now, the regular season means nothing for me coming up.
I agree.
I'm not. We're gonna do pregame lives, and I'm sure by the time that comes around and they go on a nice winning streak, we're gonna talk ourselves into things.
Yeah,
because that's just the way we are as fans. But it's like ultimately, it does not matter until round 2 of the playoffs again.
Yeah.
And then that's what we're going to see. Let's get into this coaching hire, right? In the last couple minutes here. We'll spend more time on it Friday because we got caught up with some Joel Embiid and James Harden talk today. Can't help it. More frustration had to leak out, man. We can
go until like 9:15 in case.
All right, look at you.
We can talk about it, man. We can talk about it.
Brett wants some more motion in the offense, and the defense can double and key in on Joel. Only play they had was Harden and Joel pick and roll. I agree. And they went away from it in the biggest moment. Now, these coaching hires start with the fires or the dismissals in Phoenix, Milwaukee, and Toronto. And that is Monty Williams, Mike Budenholzer, and Nick Nurse. You also have assistant head coach under Doc Rivers and Sam Cassell, who a lot of Sixers fans and people around the league would think would do a great job. You also have former Houston Rockets head coach with James Harden and Daryl Morey, and Mike D'Antoni, who could potentially be the number 1 fit for the job, for as some people see it. Frank Vogel's name was thrown in there. I will personally throw up in my mouth on the show if Frank Vogel is the decision out of all of those candidates.
Yeah, if you want creative
Scotty,
offense, it's not
I'm
Frank
pretty
Vogel.
sure you and I agree for 90% of this list. We might adjust like our 3 and 4 options, whatever the case is. Who do you want? Who is your number 1 target for the Philadelphia 76ers head coaching vacancy?
My number 1 target would have to be Nick Nurse. And, there's a lot of things that go into that. Part of it is the culture setting and just kind of changing up the vibe in Philadelphia, giving it a more serious feel, holding guys accountable. But on the other side of it, when it comes to actually getting on the court, I think what intrigues me the most is that he is kind of the opposite of Doc Rivers. And, we brought in Doc, player coach, vibe coach, culture setter, right? And similar to Brett Brown in a sense, but you want to kind of change it up. You want a fresh start, then you need to go with a different approach. And I think that Nick Nurse, out of all of these candidates, presents that different approach. I shouldn't say out of all the candidates. There's 2 candidates I feel that present a very clear and different approach than
Right.
what Doc Rivers did as far as a player's coach that's not schematically involved as much, right? Nick Nurse is analytical. He is going to make adjustments in matchups. He's going to do all the little things. He pays attention to the small details. That's what I'm ultimately looking for in this next coach. We know the different fits that he's given to Joel Embiid himself. So what better way to kind of get Joel Embiid past his flaws and past his weaknesses than bringing in a coach who understands them to the fullest extent and attack them every time they played. So I'm looking at it from that standpoint. The other option that I think that clearly distincts themselves from the others and would completely change this team is Mike D'Antoni. And I know there's a lot of people that are against it. They say he's never won anything. But the truth is, he's gotten to the Western Conference Finals, right? He brought the Phoenix Suns to the Western Conference Finals, beat teams like the Lakers in the playoffs, had matchups with the San Antonio Spurs in their prime and their peak seasons. Like, he's been through the trenches, and he runs a prolific offense. I think that's the biggest thing with Mike D'Antoni is the offensive scheme. Like Brett has talked about in the comments throughout the whole show, that stagnant offense, that non-free flowing, that lack of movement, that will not happen with Mike D'Antoni. And I would put it like this, and I'll toss it to you. When I look at those two coaching options, because those would be my top two. I know there's people out there that want Monty Williams. I'll let you dig into them if you like to. But Mike D'Antoni, I look at him. He's a guy that could create very fun basketball over the next few years. Maybe it doesn't win a championship, quite honestly. Maybe it doesn't. But he could create a very fun basketball, a very good product, I guess you could say, as far as a free-flowing offense, a team that scores a lot of points and creates exciting basketball nonetheless. And they would be in the playoffs in and out every year. Now with Nick Nurse, I feel like he brings more strategic capabilities, but he also brings that seriousness and that championship pedigree that is more up to date, I would say, than Mike D'Antoni. So I would say Nick Nurse gives you the best chance at a championship. With Mike D'Antoni, you're at least going to get a successful product, a viewable product, an enjoyable product. But that's how I look at it, very generically, I guess, at first here.
So Nick Nurse is also my number one option here. Although for whatever reason, I fear that he is the least likely, or the fourth least likely, to get the job for this vacancy. Nick Nurse is my favorite option because of everything that you laid out, the adjustments in game, the adjustments game to game, the matchup analyzation and what he's able to do. And let's be honest, there were two teams earlier on in Joel Embiid's career that constantly gave him problems.
Yeah.
And that was the Boston Celtics and that was the Toronto Raptors. Now, granted, both of those teams had things that other teams did not. They had big, strong centers. Marc Gasol gave him problems himself. Now, again, granted, Joel was phenomenal in that Toronto series and had no help, but Nick Nurse found a way to do different things against Joel. Now, wouldn't want to assume that if he had a decent amount of success against a player that talented defensively, he can see and find ways to activate Joel offensively. Not that Joel needs help offensively. I'm just saying
situational basketball.
When a team like Boston goes to a too big lineup and takes away the pick and roll and Nick Nurse will adjust in game and figure out a way to get Joel active in other areas of the offense.
Yeah.
So the adjustments and everything like that, I would love. He brings, again, I need a culture setter. I need a culture changer for someone that the guys respect, even if they don't necessarily agree and or like him. Like, bro, Joel and him have had public beefs. They have said things publicly to the media about each other last year in the playoffs, and Joel has continued those comments this year. Okay. But again, you got to be grown men. Yeah. You got to recognize the ability to win a championship together, shake hands, make up, whatever you got to do, get the F over it and figure it out. I also think that Nick Nurse brings a little bit of a, not that, again, we were already defensive minded, right? The Sixers were always like top 3, top 5 in defensive rating and blah, blah, blah. But there were issues where we just relied too much on Joel Embiid's rim protection.
Yeah.
I think Nick Nurse can change some of that. He can fix some of that and fix the toughness that this team and the mental toughness that this team, like Tobias Harris alluded to, may lack there. So Nick Nurse is my favorite for a lot of reasons. Secondly, this is tough for me. I told you D'Antoni yesterday. I'm going to stick with Mike D'Antoni here, and it's not a popular one. I like D'Antoni because of the offensive expertise. And when you go back to those off-ball cutting percentages and numbers and the stagnant offense and the boring offense, when things go and get tough, it's just Joel pounding the ball through the rock. It's trying to get Joel the ball, but they're taking that away and he can't get to his spot and no one knows what to do. That'll all go away. The questions you have as fans, right? There are people that push back because you never won anything. Mike D'Antoni coached in the Western Conference through the Spurs dynasty and the Warriors dynasty.
And the Lakers.
Did you know a lot of other coaches that were coming out of the Western Conference that I don't know about besides those 2 or 3 other teams? No. Did you also know that Mike D'Antoni, specifically, since we're talking about James Harden and Daryl Morey, Mike D'Antoni, when coaching James Harden, who, yes, was a different breed then, who was the MVP, one of the greatest scorers the league has ever seen, it was James Harden and a bunch of nothing. A bunch of nothing. And he took those teams to 50-plus wins year after year. He took those teams to Western Conference Finals. He took that team, maybe my mind's slipping here, but it was Mike D'Antoni coaching that team in Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors, correct?
Yeah.
Or am I wrong here? Oh, it was.
Yeah, it should be.
Oh, okay. He took one of the greatest dynasties ever to Game 7, and then they have the historically bad shooting night because that's what his offense is designed around. So, whatever. I think Mike D'Antoni offensively would be a really, really fun idea. The part that worries you again is whose hand is involved in this stirring of the pot. And is this a James Harden decision and Daryl Morey decision alone? Because James Harden should have no say in the future direction, or not a lot of say in the future direction of this organization. And is Joel Embiid okay with it? I know I texted you that, you know what, F that, the stars didn't show up. You play for who I tell you to play for. Now, that's true still to me. But if you're allowing one guy to have a say in the conversation, meaning James Harden gets somewhat of a say, you can't not discuss this with Joel Embiid. Now, I don't know if a lot of fans called on to this because for whatever reason they just ignore it because of Harden. Joel Embiid wanted Mike D'Antoni here the year we brought in Doc Rivers. Joel Embiid openly discussed that. Joel Embiid talked about that before James Harden was ever a thought to us about coming to Philadelphia. So there is already, a liking to, a connection. My question I would throw to you, man, again, being the offensive genius that he is, I know we all think he has like one style to play, right? And he revolutionized. If he's that good of a basketball mind and offensive mind, he'll find ways to get the MVP of the ball. The question a lot of people are going to have is, how does his style of offense and play help a center and a guy like Joel Embiid? That would be the question. I would just have to put my faith and trust into the fact that he knows what the F he's doing. And if Joel wanted him, they can figure something out for the MVP of the league.
I would argue that it doesn't need to fit Joel. Like, it doesn't need to focus on Joel.
Yeah,
like, that has been my thing going forward anyways. Like, his offense is free-flowing. It's not stagnant. The ball moves around a lot. And I think it would require Joel to revert back to a traditional center in most situations. And once again, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Like, it was fun. It was fun the last 3 seasons watching him roam around and kind of do what he wants on offense, go to the spots that he wants to on offense. But at the end of the day, you bring in a new coach, it's because we need to get everybody in positions where they can be successful. And I think ultimately what Mike D'Antoni could do for this team is help guys like Tyrese Maxey figure out his spacing, his areas on the floor where he can operate with Joel Embiid and James Harden on the court at the same time. I think he can figure out things like that and get guys in the right places, get guys moving around, free flowing, and getting better chemistry within the team. I think is what he can bring. They'll run a lot more. I think that's a good thing. I think that's what you saw in game 1 of that series against Boston. Now, it's not to sit here and discredit Joel. I think there's just times where the team has to go without him and to a certain extent. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. These are the things that we're missing. They're very basic basketball principles that we're missing within an offense and with these type of skill players that they have. And like you said, Mike D'Antoni did these type of things with a Houston team that had a PJ Tucker in the starting lineup, right? Eric Gordon's of the world, Patrick Beverly's of the world. Like there was a lot of different personalities, different skill types, player types that went into that team. Even Daniel House had career seasons with Mike D'Antoni, able to shoot the three, get out on the break, get fast break layups, dunks. It would be great for the Sixers. It would create easier buckets, those grueling times where we're just going through droughts. Sometimes it's okay to get out on the break and run the fast break and get in transition, especially when you have a guy like Tyrese Maxey. But like I said, I just think that you definitely take into consideration how Joel fits into the puzzle.
Yeah.
Like focus.
I agree with you. I think the Sixers could use some tinkering in that sense. Like he doesn't need to focus on Joel, but Joel definitely needs to be comfortable within that offense and
that's
have.
The key.
I don't want to say have a role because Joel still, to a sense, is the focal point of it. But focal point doesn't necessarily mean touching the ball every possession.
Exactly.
Getting the ball on the wing and, everybody else kind of stay and move for him to ISO. And no. There could be other ways to make Joel the focal point that isn't what we saw under Doc Rivers' administration. Okay. Exactly. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a couple people tweet it out and it almost feels too, wishy for me. But for the fact that Mike D'Antoni has not had a head coaching gig in a while, for the fact that he's been passed up on a couple of other vacancy opportunities recently. So he's not like, league renowned where everybody's fighting for Mike D'Antoni at the moment. Is there a world where you hire another head coach, whether that be a Nick Nurse, whether that be, Mike Budenholzer, whether that be Monty Williams, and Mike D'Antoni comes on as his assistant?
He is older. I mean,
he's like 74, bro.
Yeah, it would probably make more sense in a sense if he did do it that route. I'd probably be a lot even more comfortable with that as well. And then
me too.
That's when you can bring in maybe a Monty Williams or something. Right. Like maybe you can bring him in at that point because he is a good players coach.
I think him and Nurse would balance each other perfectly.
That's ideal, but I think that is dreaming. I think that is literally dreaming if they do that. But I do like the idea of that. And like you said, I think it would balance Nick Nurse out even more. It would still give Joel that sense of getting what you want, James Harden that sense of getting what you want, but we still get what we want, and a guy that's going to set a culture here.
Yeah.
Nick Nurse, man, I think he's by far the best candidate. I don't know how people are like pointing to Monty Williams and thinking that that's going to fix the issues within the Sixers. I think that Monty Williams got sold out by Phoenix. I think that he can still be
sold out by DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, he can still be a good coach in this league. I'm not doubting that. I just think for a culture that you're looking for, he's going to bring a lot of the same similar tendencies as far as playing into the players. Yeah, I do believe so. I honestly do. Even into the stretch there with the Phoenix Suns, apparently he had a riff with Devin Booker, of all people on that team, which if you're going to have a riff with it's basically Harden and Doc, but just as far as like not making in-game adjustments, the same old.
No, that's fair.
That's where I'm at. Like I want somebody that's why I'm out on Mike Budenholzer. He's very similar in that fashion of not making in-game adjustments, not making in-series adjustments. Although Mike Budenholzer, interesting thing that was pointed out about him is that he could find a way to take the wear and tear off of Joel Embiid throughout the regular season, keep the Sixers afloat similar to what he did with the Bucks this year. Didn't run Giannis into the ground. He had an unlucky injury anyways, but didn't run Giannis into the ground. So maybe he can preserve Joel Embiid, get the most out of role players. You saw guys like Bobby Portis and Grayson Allen go there and have like career seasons.
Pat Connaughton coming off the bench.
Pat Connaughton. Yeah, there's
smacking threes.
Ton of guys. So he does have that appeal, I would say.
When it comes to Monty and Bud, I would say that I'm not jumping up and down for either of them like I would for Nick Nurse.
I'm not going to slam the table if they get fired. Like I'm not going to be pissed, but
I'm not going to be mad either, and I will find a way to talk myself into it because that's just what I do. However, I can see the pros and cons for each, the similarities that a Monty Williams would bring, like a Doc Rivers, right?
No coach is the same, though, to be fair. Like, to be completely fair, they're all human beings. They're all different. So.
I just think it's funny. Like, we've gotten to this point where, so Monty, Bud, and Doc, the Sixers, the Bucks, and the Suns were the top three teams in wins over the last 3 seasons. And all 3 guys were fired. Now, Doc catches that heat because he was unable to get past the second round.
Yeah.
I feel it's wrong to include Monty and Bud in these conversations. Yes, I know. The Bucks got swept this year. He choked. Yes, I know. Monty got his pants coached off, it looks like, to the naked eye, right? 2 years ago, these dudes were coaching against each other in the NBA Finals, and one of them was successful. And the other that wasn't successful was the NBA Coach of the Year that year. So, like, I know that there's going to be cons and negatives to every candidate. We're getting a little overboard with thinking, in my opinion, that, this is the same. No, it's not, because one guy or 2 guys in this scenario have proven to do something Doc Rivers has not proven to do. And that is get past the second round and the third round and win an NBA title. Yeah, if you want to, I get it. Budenholzer hasn't seemed to be able to adjust mid-series. And we as Sixers fans just lived with that, so we would be pissed. Monty Williams apparently, plays the older guys, plays the veterans too much and doesn't let the young guys play. We know about that. But there's pros and cons to both. One has a ring recently. They coached against each other 2 years ago, while the other was the coach of the year. I think that people are a little too harsh on those two. But they're not my favorites. Like, we discussed our top 2. Sam Cassell is the last option here before we wrap up the show. I know we got to get off now. But to me, again, it's not something I'll necessarily be mad at. And Sam Cassell, the guy, would definitely deserve it. And Maxey's his protege, and he seems to have Harden's ear, which could be good. And, him and the whole team have, know Sam, and they like Sam. There's a big difference between being that assistant, friendly, that friend to the players when coach is being a dick. I'm your friend. You can talk to me. I can blah, blah, blah. There's a difference there. And I'm not saying he's underqualified, because he could do it. And, I just would like to know where these Sam Cassell stands have just already know that he's going to be a great head coach when he's never done it. I'm not saying he can't do it. There's way too many people sold on the fact that Sam Cassell is your man.
Yeah. No.
How the hell? You and I watch the same games, bud. What do you know that Sam Cassell does besides calling Maxey his protege and being cool with the players? What do you know that he does? You know what they know, Scotty? Nada. They don't know anything that Sam Cassell does. They just like the idea. And I'm not saying it's a bad one. But don't sit here and tell me and try to sell me on the fact that Sam Cassell is the right man for the job over all these other candidates who have championship rings and championship experience. Because you don't. You're hoping that the not homegrown guy, but the guy already here. And by the way, if we want less Doc, if we don't want similarities to Doc, why would you want the guy that just coached under him for 3 years? Like,
he's going to keep he's going to keep some of Doc's staff. I mean, he would keep some of the guys that are on. Like, that's my thing with Sam Cassell, and mind you, I mean, he's in the category with like Monty and Bud for me. Like, I'm not going to get mad if they get hired as the head coach, but they're just not my first choice at all. They're not near the top for me. But it's like he has no coaching experience, so it's like, why is he the guy that's going to get them past the second round? And like you said, at this point, like, if we're going to fire Doc and let him go after this season and start fresh, then let's just start fresh. Let's clear everything out as far as the coaching staff, and let's start to set a new culture. I think with Sam Cassell, like you said, he's going to have a lot of leftover from Doc. He learned a lot from Doc. And he's going to have even some of Doc's coaching staff, I would imagine, would be back with him.
Yep.
Unless Doc goes elsewhere, right, as a head coach, because I saw he's still interested in coaching. But, Sam Cassell, like you said, how does anybody know if he's going to be a good head coach, a great?
Well, dude, that's the thing. I'm not saying those people are wrong.
We don't need any question marks.
I'm not saying those people are wrong, and I'm not saying that assistant coaches, like, people get a start somewhere. Like, Nick Sirianni gets his start somewhere. Rob Thompson gets his start somewhere. I'm not saying it's always the wrong choice, and that's not how it works. They have to be a head coach. I'm not that dumb. But like, there's people, some bench coach, some assistant for the Heat. Someone's like, well, let's go with him because he's got that culture, and maybe you're right. But, like, bro, you're a Sixers fan that watches Sixers games. Stop trying to tell me that you're some NBA coaching genius that knows about the third assistant on the Miami Heat bench and what he can bring to the table. Because you don't. You don't know. Maybe you read an article or two. You don't know about the guy. The same that I don't. So if they hire someone that we don't know, we better hope and pray for the best. But don't tell me why it's such a great fit. It's my spiel to the fans today, Scotty.
I'm with you. Relax.
You, man. We're all upset.
Try something
Stop
different.
Overreacting. I've yelled a lot. I've yelled more on today's show than I have in a very long time.
Yeah, let's just. I mean, at this point, it's funny. I'm kind of like over the loss in a sense. Like, I'm still upset. I'm upset at Embiid. I'm upset at Harden.
The Doc dismissal definitely helped speed that process up.
It did. And my mind is
focus on something new for
my mind is already processing. Yeah. I'm ready to start figuring out what this Sixers team is going to look like going forward. I'm excited to see a fresh new scheme, a fresh new offense. The only thing I'm praying for is that we don't get to next season and we start to see similar tendencies as Doc Rivers and the same old. Like, I don't want to see that. I want to see something fresh, new. I want to see an offense that is
I will say
around, no stagnicity. Like,
whether they bring in a coach different or similar of Doc Rivers, if the offense looks very similar or identical to what it is this year, we will then start to have a conversation on our center. Because at that point, again, another coaching change. When does that become the common denominator of this is just what life looks like because this is your best player and this is how he needs to play and this is where he needs the ball. So we'll see who can bring what. It'll be interesting.
We'll find out.
Google is good, Brad. Listen, people know names. I'm not like, but don't tell, like, people can't sit here and tell me a guy's tendencies and strategies and what he's going to bring to the table and his leadership. You don't know shit. Not jack shit, man. That is going to wrap up this Wednesday edition of the Phaithful Fanatic Show. Don't forget to check out our friends over at Manscaped. Guys, use promo code DSM at checkout for 20% off your entire order plus free shipping. Again, that is promo code DSM, all caps, at checkout for 20% off your whole order plus free shipping over at manscaped.com. Let them know that your friends at DSM sent you, and your balls will certainly thank you. Myself and Scotty will be back here live on DSM's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels on Friday morning at 8 a.m. Talking more Sixers offseason, starting our wish list for the 76ers offseason. We'll be giving one wish per Friday episode leading up to June 30th's start of free agency. And maybe, Scotty, maybe. Oh, actually, I know what we're doing. Your hat just reminded me. We're finally getting around to the Eagles schedule, because with the Sixers postseason run, we forgot to do that. So we are going to be breaking down our wins and losses for the Eagles schedule. Sure. Talking about the level of difficulty. Obviously, it's the most difficult schedule in the NFL. So we're going to talk about all of it on Friday's show, guys. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM, have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Peace, everybody.